Okay, and we are live. How's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Wardy here for the latest episode of Queen's Quarter Podcast. Myself, and that is, of course, our beloved co-host, and Anthony Recker. You know Reck's been gone for a while when he has stubble on his face. Reck, I don't think I've ever seen you with that amount of stubble on your face. When was
Yeah,
the last time that's happened?
this is as bad as it gets. I see that like hole right there. Yeah, that's why I don't grow it out much because it doesn't grow in properly.
You need to get one of those
But yeah,
rollers that punctures the skin. Get it all
it
filled
does.
up. That's what you need.
like they do with the grass, aerate it. You gotta aerate
exactly.
it. Yeah. No, I just need to do that. I guess. No. It's been a little while since I've shaved. I think I did it like right before Disney, and then I just kind of let it go for the last week or so. So
yeah, no, it looks. I like it though.
There.
I might be in the minority.
Gonna have to shave again soon.
I do like it, but what I like even more is the Mets getting a series sweep. How sweep it is against these Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, if there's one thing that hasn't changed from last year with this Metropolitan team is their dominance against the Phillies that we're all happy about because, you know, unless you're a Phillies fan watching the live show right now, you know, you got to always enjoy beating up on the Phillies. And that's what the Mets did in this 3-game set. So we're going to be sharing our raw analysis and reaction to games 1, 2, and 3 overall, just what transpired in these ones that led to the series sweep. Going to really pick Reck's brain on the Alvarez front because we haven't really had Reck on since Alvarez just bursted up and became the best catcher in baseball over this past month. That's quite literally what he has been. So I really want to hear his thoughts on that. Of course, we're going to get into the pitching a bit too. And while it's been roller coaster, definitely stepped up huge in this series against the Phillies. And then kind of wrapping things up with sharing our analysis on the Blue Jays series preview, in which that matchup begins tomorrow against former friend, now foe, and Chris Bassett. And then getting into some of your comments if we have time for it. But if you guys are watching live here on the WardyNYM YouTube channel, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. It's greatly appreciated. Or if you're watching on the 7 Line socials, that being their Facebook or their Twitter or even my Twitter at WardyNYM, make sure to hit that like. Make sure to drop comments in the live show. It's greatly appreciated. Get the word out there for your boys. But before we get into it, I had to let Reck know that I need to make an announcement first, as I told you guys that we have a giveaway winner for our Brett Beatty jersey giveaway, in which I partnered with Sower MLB, a great partner here on the channel, best fantasy game out there. And in doing so, by you guys signing up, clicking the link in the live chat or in the description down below to sign up to Wardy's Unique League, I was going to pick one random person who signed up to the league at the end of the month, and they would win a Brett Beatty jersey giveaway. And after doing the randomizer, I'm happy to say, let me see if he's in the live show right now. Give me 1 second. Shout out to everyone watching live, guys. And he is in the live show, so this is perfect. All right, and I'm very happy to announce this too, because the guy who won it, I know, has been a follower of the WardyNYM YouTube channel for years now, a member, and that is Yoshima. Yoshima, congratulations. You have won the Brett Beatty jersey giveaway. I know that you follow me on Twitter.
Professor Yoshima.
Professor Yoshima has won the Brett Beatty jersey. Again, appreciate everyone else that signed up and entered. Don't be upset. We're doing another jersey giveaway, in which it'll be officially announced next week. But, you know, who's it going to be? It's probably going to be the best catcher in baseball. So, again, anyone that wants an Alvarez jersey, we'll be starting that next week. So stay tuned for that one. But, again, Yoshima, congratulations. Make sure to reach out to me either via email or Twitter DM, and I'll get all your info, get your jersey size, and I will get that Brett Beatty jersey sent your way. Congratulations again, and appreciate everyone again that signed up to the league. But that's enough of that. Now let's talk about the Metropolitans here, because Reck, before we deep dive, you know, little things that went on in each of these games, I just want to know what has been your biggest takeaway overall, seeing the Mets again head back home after losing 2 consecutive series on the road against the Cubs, against the Rockies, coming home, and what they've done well lately, now winning 8 straight games at home. They won 5, you know, prior to the road trip, and now they won 3 more. So what's your raw takeaway from that?
Yeah, a lot of it to me revolves around the pitching. You know, particularly at home, they've been very good. This series against the Phillies, starting pitching was phenomenal. They were great every outing. You know, outing after outing was fantastic. Senga was lights out. I mean, I don't want to say I expected more of that from him, but I did. I kind of did. Like I thought this was the guy that we were going to see a little bit more of. You know, 1 hit, no walks, 9 Ks, 7 innings.
Spoiled.
I mean,
I've been to his last 2 home starts, 12 Ks against the Rays, 9 against the Mets. It's been such a treat to watch.
Fantastic. I mean, he's been awesome. And so I think that's where it all starts and ends with this team right now. Offensively, I think we've kind of seen what they are with the players that they have. You know, they're going to hit a few more home runs now with Alvarez in the lineup. Obviously, Pete's been hitting home runs all year. He's been pretty good. Lindor's been, you know, hit extra base hits. You know, he's still not quite to where I would like to see him as far as, hitting for a little better average, getting on base a little bit more, all those kinds of things. But Nimmo's been very good. I think this team is what it is offensively. Like, I think we've seen what they are, and that just is what it is. Is there more with Mauricio, coming up eventually? Beatty could be, hitting better at times. Yeah, that stuff could help. But that's what this team is. The pitching staff had really been underperforming for a while now. And that's really been like the majority of the concern, right? Like, that's been the issue. When you look at some of the poor streaks that they've had, it's been that starting pitching. It's been home runs given up by the bullpen. Those kinds of things have popped up, and that's been an issue. Walks issued, home runs in general, just by the starters or relievers, doesn't really matter. That's been the issue for this team more than anything else. Would you like to see some more runs? Sure. But at the same time, like, this pitching staff is better than how it's been pitching. And, it's good to see them kind of get back on track.
Oh, absolutely. And I would also like to also announce, too, that unfortunately, while we've been live on YouTube, I forgot to hit OK for social media. So to everyone watching live now on Twitter, on the 7 Line Socials, happy to have you guys in here as we're breaking down the latest Mets series as they take 3 out of 3, a series sweep against the Philadelphia Phillies. That's Anthony Recker.
This is my tech guy, guys.
Yeah,
this is my I pointed it wrong. This is my tech guy.
Shame on me. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. But again, appreciate everyone watching live. Make sure to hit that like button if you're watching on Twitter. Drop your comments in the live show as it's happening, as we're breaking down again. Rec just sharing his raw reaction to this series, and really a big thing. And I asked in a poll for everyone watching live on the WardyNYM YouTube channel right now, what is your biggest standout from the series? Is it A, is it Mark Canha? Is it B, is it the starting pitching? Or is it C, is the bullpen? So my question to you, Rec, while you highlight a lot of those things that we saw throughout the series, which was great, what would you say rather is the thing that impressed you the most of those 3?
I still think it's the starting pitching, because we didn't see Verlander in the series, and you expected him to be one of the better pitchers. Carrasco had a great outing. Again, it's a couple now in a row. Senga was fantastic, and Scherzer just kind of getting back on track, right? Like, getting healthy, getting back on track, being the type of Max Scherzer we have come to know and love, or hate when he was with the Nationals, I guess. But realistically, to me, that is it. Look, it's great to see Canha hitting some home runs. He's been swinging a hot bat in general over the last couple of weeks, so it's not a surprise to me to see the home runs starting to come for him. But it's obviously nice, and they needed those runs. They didn't score a whole lot of runs outside of Mark Canha, producing what he did over the last couple of days. So that was obviously a good thing to see. The bullpen has been, for the most part, fairly consistent on the year. Ottavino is Ottavino. I don't have to go into that. You guys know how I feel.
He got worked, though. The fact that he gave us back-to-back outings of scoreless is, again, needed. Yeah. We're working the hell out of him.
It wasn't pretty, but it worked. And that's, sometimes that's all it takes. Robertson's been really, really good all year. And I think when you look at kind of the Drew Smiths, Rayleighs,
even Brigham had another solid.
Brigham, that was the other name I was thinking of. So those are the 3 I think that have been in, kind of some bigger situations and have given up home runs at times. They obviously were able to keep the ball in the ballpark for the series. And so, that equated to, great outings from everybody and a really good pitching performance. But again, I kind of saw the Canha thing. He's been swinging the bat much better in the last couple of weeks anyway. And so that doesn't really surprise me. It's to me, it's more about the impressive. It's the pitching. We need, if the Mets want to go anywhere, they need this pitching staff to be not just good, but really good. Top 5 in the league for sure. They have not been that, not even close to that on the year. This to me was the first, kind of real, I think, since the first couple weeks of the season. We saw Tyler McGill out there pitching well. David Peterson had a couple of nice outings early on. Max was healthy and had a couple nice outings early on. Senga had a couple nice outings early on. So we saw it. We saw the flashes, but this is the first time they really kind of put it together, I think, for a really nice 3-game series that they just pitched their butts off.
Yeah, especially when you look at how they perform in the road trip. And I know, don't get me wrong, you're in a batter's box when you're there in Coors, but there's something to be said when you got just some really unfortunate outings from Tyler McGill, who gave up hard hit contact from the start of that game. Yes, Starling Marte in center field maybe didn't help things. That led to that implosion of an inning after, of course, Alvarez hit his 3-run home run for, I think, the second consecutive day because he's an absolute beauty. But not only that, it was Justin Verlander. Again, JV going from a stellar start that we saw against the Guardians, 8 of only 1 earned run ball, thanks to J-Ram in the first. You know, he comes into Colorado, he gets absolutely shelled, and you can't have that up and downness from, even though he might be 40 years of age, but he's getting paid $40 million, and he's a reigning Cy Young Award winner. So that stuff is inexcusable, and the Mets need to make sure that they could get this rotation back on track and fast. And thankfully, when you have a Kodai Senga to start, for instance, that 2-0 victory, in which now at home this season, he has right around a 1-year ERA, only 1 home run allowed with 38 strikeouts. On the road, he still has a 6+ ERA, 5 home runs allowed, and 32 strikeouts. So if he can start to really get himself acclimated on the road, which I fully expect he will, he really just looks like a guy that's most comfortable at Citi Field because he's played there more than anywhere else, right? And he's still getting acclimated in North America. So I'm not shocked that when he's in a batter's box like Cincy, for example, or other places for the first time, that it's an adjustment for him. But my biggest takeaway from Senga wasn't only his dominance with getting those strikeouts a lot with the Ghost Fork, it was the 0 walks. That is the biggest thing with Senga, right? If he can continue to build off of what was another strong outing, and then you have Carlos Carrasco, who looked great against the Cubs and then did again yesterday, going 6 innings of only 1 earned run ball. I mean, that's absolutely masterful what you could get from Cookie, a guy that for a while we didn't even think, oh, I was going to say, do you have to put out the garbage? Is it garbage?
Garbage alarm.
It is garbage alarm.
Garbage alarm.
There you go. Where is why am I blanking on the name in the chat? Is it Bobby G? Bobby G. Where's Bobby G at? Where was he? He was delayed on that. If you know, you know. But yeah, Carrasco.
Scott Hodson with the shout out on Twitter too.
Yeah, they know.
I saw you.
They're well aware. But again, I'm just really, really proud with what I've seen with Carrasco, because while he's feeling healthy, we know that he's going to continue to deal with that bone spur issue. It's been lessened down because they got the inflammation down, all that stuff right now. But if the Mets can continue to get some quality innings, quality starts no less, that we're getting out of Carrasco the past couple, that's going to do wonders for this rotation that we've seen. And then Max Scherzer today, it can't be slight. Again, the Mets go down early today in the first inning, 2-0, and then Max just gets in a groove. He gives them 7 strong innings, 9 strikeouts, and 101 pitches, has a 3.21 ERA on the season. Scherzer's last 3 starts now have been nothing short of phenomenal. Either 6 or 7 innings of 1 earned run ball, 2 earned run ball, or no earned run ball. Really, really happy with what I'm seeing from him, including the fact that, his 2 starts ago against the Guardians, he pitched 6 scoreless when I was there in attendance, and he had that, that broken blister on his thumb. So he was going through hell dealing with that. Wasn't even like fully sharp for his last start against the Rockies, but he pitched masterfully there, still healing up. And you can really tell that Max is back to being the Max of old, and that's great for someone that, again, I've had my fair criticisms towards him with, the suspension, obviously, which was unfortunate, and I'm still frustrated. Phil Cuzzy, that's all I got to say on that front. But between all the little ailments and in between, a guy who looking like he's starting to break down a little bit, again, at the age of 38, 39, not shocking, but huge to get that outing out of him. And again, to get the bullpen, they were worked a lot. All the top guys worked every single day, and not including today, however. But Ottavino and Robertson going back-to-back days, shutting the door on this Phillies lineup that is lethal as all hell, but they've just been swing and miss. And the Mets have had the Phillies number, man. I mean, since 2021, the Mets have won what feels like almost every series. I'm pretty sure that this was the 7th consecutive series the Mets have beat the Phillies. It's insane what they've done against them, and thankfully that's continued, including today against Taijuan Walker, the former Met. He was only able to go 4 innings, 74 pitches, 3 earned runs, 3 walks. He didn't look comfortable today, and I feel for Ty.
No.
He's been dealing with ailments all year. He started with forearm tightness coming off of playing for Team Mexico at the WBC. He's still not fully comfortable out there, and while I love him and I wish him nothing but the best as long as he's not facing the Mets, this was one of those things that I'm not shocked by. I think we all kind of knew that with Ty, that even at his best, we knew what his peak would be. And, was he making $74 million or whatever it is? You got to love the upside that you're getting right now in Kodai Senga, not only now, but hopefully for the years to come. So, again, the Mets did a really, really sharp job in this series on the pitching front. But I want to highlight for a second Mark Canha, because you said he's been swinging a hot bat as of late, and he has. He's hit in 6 of his last 7 games now. And one thing that really stood out to me is that Mark Canha against the Philadelphia Phillies, I mean, he literally is their father. Let's not forget last year in the summer, I want to say it was late July or whenever it was, he had 2 home runs against the Phillies. It was that Jose Buto start where he had extra innings, long rain delay. all that stuff going on, and Canha hit not one but two, either game tying or game winning bombs. He has a 429 average, 4 home runs, and 13 RBIs over his past 7 games against the Phillies. So, what do you think has to do with that? Do you think that for whatever reason he just has a good eye against this Phillies team, or do you think that this is also in hand with him finally getting out of the slump that he had, again being in that platoon role to start the season?
Yeah, I think I've seen, some of this stuff with, guys have like really good career numbers against certain teams, or, really good numbers over a certain time frame, over a pitcher or a team, whatever it may be. I think a lot of that is chance at first. And then I think it just you begin to build confidence against certain teams. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily game plans they have against you, but you just start to feel comfortable facing certain teams, and it doesn't really matter who's on the mound. So, it's just one of those things. It's like a funny thing in baseball that, this is such a small sample size, you can't really take too much out of it. But at the same time, you wonder, if it continues, does it start to get in the head of the pitchers, on the Philly side, or does it get in Canha's head and he's feeling more confident when he sees that Philly uniform out there? That can be a part of the game. It's an interesting part of the game, but part of the game nonetheless.
They definitely have a swagger against this Phillies team. And again, as someone that resides just like an hour out of Philly, you're from Caddy too, so you can relate. I mean, you grew up not being a fan of the Phillies, to say the least, right? So, especially for us that don't live far from the area or haven't lived far from the area, it's always great. I mean, again, game one, when I went to game one of the series, I took my buddy who's a diehard Phillies fan. We sat behind home plate, gave him the whole 9 yards, and wanted to make sure that he still had a miserable night. So, I mean, you can't ask for much more in that sense. But seriously, being up on the Phillies is great. And I think there is a little bit of a mentality thing to it, right? Because this is kind of unprecedented what the Mets have done against them since the end of 2021. Last year, if it wasn't for the Mets, I always say this to my buddy because he's like, well, the Phillies went to the World Series, and that was great. Good for you guys. You had a deep run when it mattered most. I'd argue that if it wasn't for the Mets pistol whipping the Phillies last year, they don't have that type of run. I wholeheartedly believe that. They had the absolute life sucked out of them, from Girardi, of course, that collapse earlier in the year, to being part with, to then bringing up, of course, their interim manager there, and now he's still there, of course. It's crazy how, even though the Mets did everything possible, including every walk-off from a no-hitter to insane comebacks constantly against that Phillies team, that they still managed to find the confidence in themselves down the stretch. It was like they needed to be battered around to really know like where they were as a team and how they could come together to fight that adversity. So I always say to any Phillies fans that want to talk to me, like, you should thank the Mets. I firmly believe if it wasn't for the Mets, they wouldn't have won on a World Series run, and I'll stand by that. But one thing I'll also stand by is that, again, statistically, over the past month, Francisco Alvarez is the best catcher in baseball. I've had people talking about Sean Murphy, Adley Rutschman. Again, these guys are great. Overall, I'm not making that argument. But over the month of May, Francisco Alvarez, 7 home runs, 17 RBIs, around a 300 average, over 1,000 OPS. Rec, as a former catcher yourself, I got to know, what has your raw reaction been and analysis watching daily Alvarez going from 2 weeks of being the worst catcher in baseball to quite literally looking like the biggest impact bat, and defensively, robbing strikes in the Mets' favor on a night-to-night basis? I got to know how you're feeling about Francisco.
Yeah, I think for me, offensively, I always felt like this was going to come around. It was just give him the playing time that he deserves, which he's now earned and he's getting. But it was going to happen. This kid was a top 5 prospect, top 10 prospect, top prospect in baseball over the last couple of years. And so to me, that isn't as much of a surprise. I don't want to say I expected him to be the best hitting catcher in his first full month in the big leagues. I'm not saying that, because I didn't. I thought it would take a little bit more time. But that said, look, he's hot right now. Ride him. And that's what I love. This kid has the ability to carry your team. He's that type of bat. What's really impressed me is what he's done defensively. Whether it's the pitch framing, the throw he made, was it last night?
Yes.
Was it 2 nights ago? Was it last night? With Otto on the mound.
Trying to think. It was the
last night or 2 nights ago.
First game when I was there. I blanked for a second.
It's 2 nights ago. Yep. Okay. So, he made that throw. It was incredible to get Real Muto trying to steal second there, which was really silly on his part. 2-0 game, trying to take second there. Look, it is Ottavino on the mound, so I get it. You feel like it's a free bag and you just want to take it. At the same time, you're the tying run. Just play it out, let it happen. All that said, that was, that's on the Phillies. That's on Real Muto. It was a great throw by Alvarez. I mean, he got rid of that ball so fast, and a really nice tag by McNeil. He did a really nice job of cutting in front of that. It was the only route he had to get to that ball and put a tag down really fast. So it's just good teamwork there from the two of them. But just everything I've seen from Alvarez, I've been very, very impressed. He says all the right things. He's doing all the right things. He looks like a superstar. He's acting like a superstar. And I mean that in the sense that he looks like he has a lot of fun playing the game, but he also stays under control. He also, because as a catcher, we're not really, I mean, think about all the catchers in the game. How many are like really flamboyant and are out there and are flipping bats and throwing things and
feels
doing
like a new generation almost, you know?
But catchers still aren't really like, they don't have that persona because they have to stay under control. Like that, we have to keep our emotions in check. We're part of the brain system, that coaching system out there on the field. Exactly. And so I've just been really impressed that even though he has had some big moments and he's done a lot of great things, that hasn't, and I'm not saying he can't celebrate, but like, it's really good to see that he is still able to keep himself in check so that he can keep his defense, as the priority and the thing that he knows he's working on and focused on, 9 innings of the game, because you can't for one pitch lose your focus behind the plate. You can't do it. Offensively, obviously, you don't want to do it then either. If you want to be one of the elite hitters in the game, you have to find a way to do it every pitch there too. But that's why it's so hard to be a great hitting catcher. Yeah, it's physically demanding, but it's mentally demanding, and he's really handled that well. And so to me, that's what's impressed me the most defensively, and the way that he just looks out there. He looks mature. He does not look like a 21-year-old going out there catching the baseball, let alone hitting the baseball. It's really impressive.
Yeah, the defensive end, especially when you look at, let's take, for example, going back to game 1 with Senga on the bump end. Something that I didn't notice when I was in attendance because I wasn't paying attention to the pitch clock. Senga was going to get a pitch clock violation, and Alvarez had the awareness to go and sprint to the mound right away, make sure that didn't happen, smart move. And that is something where, a lot of veterans in the game today maybe wouldn't know, but thankfully Alvarez, he's worked for over the past year with a pitch clock there in the minors. I mean, it started there in the minors, right? So, like, that's something that he's already had that familiarity with, and that is one of those things when you look at the kids that are coming up now for the years going forward, that is where some of them will have an advantage if they got those early goings for being the test bunnies, if you will. Even with the enlarged bags last year, like, those little things make a difference when you're having top prospects that are on the verge to impact a team over the next year when those new rules are implemented. So just another thing that I really highlight with Alvarez. But even, for example, Schwarber was really pissed off with a strike call on Rayleigh tonight, and don't get me wrong, it was a ball. It was down and late. It was
deservedly so.
It was clearly a full ball.
Trip back there, just doing trip things.
I'd be pissed too. However, I'd argue that one earlier, I don't know if it wasn't that at bat, but it was during that inning. There was a clear strike call right down the middle that for whatever reason the ump just said, "Hey, we're going with the ball today." So one, I think that's even Steven there. But two, if you looked at the frame job that Alvarez had on that was a good sell job. It was fast. Like, he's really quick.
Been very good. Been very good.
Very good. And the bat too. I mean, you saw it against the Rockies when he had not one but two 3-run home runs, and then the Cubs even when he had that lone run against Stroman, who's been torching every team he's facing right now in his own right. But Alvarez with the bat, a guy that was striking out on high fastballs with Josh Hader a month ago, is now taking high fastballs literally up to the face all the way to deep left. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, if he has a chance to hit it, the power is ridiculous. And I saw a side-by-side by this. I'm not sure if you noticed or realize this. His swing is awfully similar to David Wright's if you actually look at them. They have a lot of the same follow-through, which I found interesting because I never noticed that until I saw people, people with their great Twitter analysis doing the side-by-side clips. So Alvarez has that big power swing. It's great to see him use it to his advantage right now. And just the fact that the Mets are getting this production out of a guy that they initially rushed up because of injury is huge. Now they're in a situation that, I'll ask for your quick input on this, and then we'll get into Vientos I want to talk about as well, and then get into some other topics. Tomas Dino's with the team. He's back, of course, from his dry eye syndrome injury that they called it, right? Had a single yesterday when he got a start over Alvarez. Gary Sanchez, who, was here for as long as, you've been gone. Literally, now he's hit home runs at back-to-back games with the Padres. Good for him. We knew Gary wasn't going to stay because of Anito coming back, and then Narvaez is expected to return within the next week. So What's your thoughts on the catching situation? Are you under the firm belief that I am, that I just don't foresee a world where Nito is on this roster? I think he's going to be DFA'd or traded. Am I wrong for feeling that way? I don't know how the Mets would go about this any other way right now.
I haven't dissected the roster in a way that I think probably should in order to make this call. I would say that there's a possibility or a world where they carry 3 catchers for a short time. The only reason I say that is because they do have some guys that they can option in Vientos. I'm not saying that they're going to option Beatty, but in Beatty, so there's options where they can move some other guys and create some flexibility. That way they don't have to make the decision right now and then kind of let a little bit more time play out before they do. That said, if I'm the one making the calls, I believe Nito's under contract for another year, is he not?
As is Narvaez.
As is Narvaez, correct? They both signed. Well, Narvaez signed a free agent deal. Nito signed a 2-year extension, right?
2-year extension. Nito's making, I want to say he's making $1.25 million a year. And
1.25. That sounds right.
Narvaez is making a pretty penny though, and I think he has.
Yeah, he's making a little bit more, like $7 million a year.
I think after this season, he has a player option too. I'm almost certain.
Okay.
So that's where the contract's
I think the way I see it, I would just keep options open for now. I don't think Vientos has gotten a fair enough shake. I think he should have been playing more. That said,
that's what I'm about to ask you. Yeah.
100%. I mean, he should be playing more. I don't really understand what's going on with that. That said, Tommy Pham, if you look at the numbers, he's actually been one of their better hitters of late.
Had a great game against the Rockies. We'll give him credit where credit's due.
In his last week, 2 weeks, like he's been one of the better hitters on this team. At least when you look at just like pure OPS plus, all those kinds of things. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, that means that you probably have the ability to option Vientos right now. I would rather see him on this team. I would rather see him playing. I would rather see him getting more at bats. But if he's not going to get them right now, then that's the play. To me, that keeps your options open at catcher. So unfortunately, it's like I don't want to say that. Like I want to say, send Nito off or get rid of Pham or whatever it is. Because I really like Vientos and I think he could be an impact bat for this team. He just hasn't gotten the opportunity that is necessary. When you get called up from AAA playing every day and you're raking and you come up and you don't play the first day. And I want to say he didn't even play the second day, or at least wasn't in the lineup, and then finally get a start the third day. And I could be wrong. Maybe he played the second day, but I know he didn't start his first day. Like that stuff, it just plays with you. It messes with your mind. You're a prospect. You're young. Yeah. You're raking. Yeah, like come up and play. If you're going to call me up, do not sit me. I mean, I've seen guys come from AAA who are just absolutely hair on fire. Like put him in the lineup and let him go. And big league teams will just call him up and let him sit. I mean, just let them sit.
Most frustrating
and it's crazy to me. It makes no sense. Look, he's gotten some at bats, but he should be getting more. And it's unfortunate. So I think that's probably what's going to happen, not necessarily what I wish would happen.
So on the Vientos front, to expand on that a minute, he started game 1 of the series, had himself a single. It was at least 110 mile per hour exit velo oppo right down there in the right field corner. It would have been a double if it wasn't played great defensively there by I think it was Castellanos. Castellanos also had a diving catch that game that robbed at least like 2 runs. It was I don't know where this Gold Glove is coming from, Nick, but of course he does against the Mets, as did Brandon Nimmo by robbing a bomb earlier that game. But Vientos, had a hit in that game. Didn't start the next 2 days. Vogelback. Funny enough, I posted a video. I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, just playing baseball with my buddies. I'm like, let me do a video quick. And I stood in the box and took 3 pitches, and then I just walked away. And I'm like, oh, I'm the Mets starting DH. And that, funny enough, blew up because that's what Vogie's been. He's been taking too many pitches. He's not locked in at all. He did, however, get 2 walks yesterday, and they led to 2 runs scored thanks to Mark Canha. So he was productive with getting on base yesterday. I will give him credit for that. However, his at-bats don't look good right now. His swing doesn't look good right now. He's heading, right around, he has a 300 slug. Mark Vientos pinch hitting later today for Vogelback got the run in without a problem with 112 mile per hour
Yep.
exit velo RBI sac fly, and the power's there with Vientos. I would make the fair argument that he is one of the best sluggers actually in this organization that the Mets have outside of
100%.
Alonso, outside of Lindor when he has his moments like he did in Game 1. So to your point, though, if they're not going to play him, as frustrating as it is for a Mets team right now that's promoting, come to watch the kids. All right, I want to see kids, not a kid, play them all every single night. If you're not going to do that, then yes, you are probably better off sending down Vientos sooner than later, or else you're hurting his development, and that's not good for him, nor is it even good for the Mets if they ever want to consider him in trade bait after the type of hot, scorching start he had this season. But I agree with you on the Vientos front. I really, really hope he gets more playing time because Vogelback's a veteran. I know he's in his head right now, but if he's going to be on his team, he should be able to handle being in that limited role as he has been plenty in the past versus Vientos, who was called up for a reason. So give the kid a rightful opportunity and let's not platoon him when he hit 12 of his 14 home runs this year in AAA and then the bigs against right-handed pitching. So you can't even justify that either because that was one of the only main reasons why Buck started him 3 straight games.
That's one of the problems. That's one of the problems I have with this.
I do too.
You call a kid up like Vientos. Yeah, well, I am a fan of platooning if it's the right situation.
True. Okay.
This kid doesn't have like a big issue with righties. He doesn't. At least it hasn't shown itself to be that way in the minor leagues. He doesn't have enough of a sample size in the big leagues. I'm not even going to look at those numbers yet. But in the minor leagues, it hasn't shown itself to be a big issue for him. Let him go out there and let him play against right-handed. Because if you only get left-handed ABs, first of all, you're setting this kid up to A, lose confidence against righties, and B, forget how to hit against righties. Because if you don't see big league pitching from the right side for a really long time, you're going to have a really tough time when you do get your opportunities. So I don't understand that at all. It doesn't make sense to me. I would really like to see him get right-handed. It's the same thing when we talk about Darren Ruff, like when he came over here and he struggled, like he was good for like 2 weeks and then he struggled a lot. Well, they only played him against lefties. Go look at his numbers in San Francisco. Yes, he played well against lefties, but he also hit righties okay too. Like he played against righties, and that helps you as a hitter. That keeps you locked in. That's part of the problem. I see some fire Buck stuff, and like it's all Buck, and the lineups have been terrible. And I'm not going to get into that. Like I'm not going to get into because it's not all Buck. Like I'm sure like Buck has more say than most managers when it comes to running a lineup, but it's not all Buck. Like the decisions that are made for this team and these lineups, it's not just it's not a dictatorship. It's not just Buck's way or the highway. This is a collaborative environment. Like I've talked to these guys about it. That's what they do.
Buck is giving numbers
exactly
every single day that they're throwing,
and they're using too many.
Yep.
They're using too many for this. It's sometimes you have to just let it go. And I've seen Buck at times like he'll let a righty face a righty or a lefty face a lefty in the middle of the game, and it's like, yeah, that's great. Let it happen. But then you also get situations like this that kind of are a little bit frustrating. Those in-game situations, those are Buck. They talk about that stuff beforehand. I'm sure there's a decision made in some cases, but Buck gets to make that decision more than anybody else. The pregame, the lineups, all that's not all Buck. And so to me, that ends up just being like a mixed message. And I just get frustrated because it's like the numbers are the numbers. I get that, but there's a way to manipulate numbers to make them go in any direction or in certain directions that you want them to. Stop it. Like just play the game the way it seems like it's playing out. And right now with Vientos, let the kid play.
And favor trends. That's the biggest thing. I feel like the Mets haven't only had they've been out of touch on that. I've seen that with a lot of other teams too. It's like if you look at Vogelback's overall career numbers and even this season, OPS plus, WRC plus against right-handed pitching, it's above average. It's good. We understand that. His OBP is always strong, but if you actually take the time, again, if you're watching game by game the past month, that I know I have, and I know many of you guys watching the show right now have too, then you would know when things are working and when they aren't. That's where you can't play the numbers and just scoreboard watch the entire time. That's where the Mets need to make sure that they do better at adjusting. And I'm sure they will. They have with certain things, but they're still showing those flaws. And again, you don't call up Mark Vientos just for the sake of benching him, which they have this basically the majority of this time. They literally called him up because they were so desperate for even more offense as Alvarez started to break out. That was the start of Alvarez's breakout, really, hitting that bomb against the Rays when I was there. Vientos hit the game-time bomb prior. And that was a start of it all, right? But again, these kids are factors. So if they're X factors that are helping winning and losing ball games for you and they're bringing a nice young momentum, ride that hot hand, and that's the final thing I'll say on that. I know we got donations. We'll get to them shortly, guys. appreciate you so much. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button if you're watching live here on the WardyNYM YouTube channel for the latest episode of Queen's Corner Pod. Make sure to check it out. Of course, for everyone watching on social media on the 7 Line socials, happy to have you in here as well. Shout out Robert, Matthew, all you guys on Facebook commenting. It really does mean a lot. But let's get into now a little bit further briefly on the pitching. So as we noted, again, the pitching looked really, really sharp for the Mets in this series against the Phillies, right? And this is something where we've seen this roller coaster up and down with the pitching. And it finally feels like they're starting to get something in unison as long as they can provide similar numbers on the road. You know, this Mets team at home have really, really looked stellar their past 8+ games, right? And they also started the year with less home games than any other team in baseball. They had the West Coast trip in the first month of the season, so they had a lot of things going on, right? And that West Coast trip was good, but everything after that was terrible. It didn't matter who they were playing, good, bad, or ugly. They just weren't playing well against them if they were on the road. But now that they're back home, they're really starting to get more in a groove. So what would you say is the most important thing that you're looking for from both this rotation and this bullpen for the games going forward from what we've seen, which has been, again, a Jekyll and Hyde-ness, if you will, to start the season?
Yeah, they need more consistency. And you're right, it does start with on the road, but to me, it comes in the form of at home, they feel comfortable because look, this is a pitcher, it's a pitcher-friendly park. This is not a hitter-friendly park. So you feel more comfortable on the mound. But B, you also feel more comfortable because you know the mound. These guys got to do a better job of being able to adjust on the road. The walks are up on the road. The home runs are up on the road. And I know, like I said, that does have something to do with the ballpark itself, at least the home runs. But the walks, like that doesn't need to happen. They have been coming down. They have been getting better. They were like third worst in baseball in walks. Now they've dropped down to like 8th worst or something like that over the last couple of weeks.
And the home run
it's gotten
ball.
better.
They've been one of the worst teams in baseball giving up bombs right now.
Well, that's when you are at the top of the list and giving up walks and giving up homers, you are not a good pitching staff. Like that is not going to work come the end of the year. Heck, for the whole year. You're going to lose a lot of games because of that. You're giving free passes, and then you're doing it. That's what we talk about offensively over the last couple of years. That's been, I shouldn't say a couple of years, over the last 20 years. That's been a theme, like walks and home runs. That's what teams were trying to do. There's a reason for that, and I need to see that to continue in the direction it's going right now, because it's been going in the right direction. It just needs to continue that way, at least at home. Obviously it has. So we just need to keep seeing that. As long as we keep seeing those numbers decline, at least to maybe league average or better would be great. I think this pitching staff gets on track, and of course they got to be healthy. They're getting all their guys back. It's looking like this team could be and start to be what we thought they would be. In the fact that they've got Verlander and Scherzer at the top of the rotation now. Peterson's down in AAA, and I know he's trying to figure it out. And he had a really great outing a week ago or so down there. But Carrasco's been back. He's been pitching better. Senga's great at home, just needs to figure it out on the road. This team's getting healthy. Now it's just a matter of doing those little things and figuring it out so that they can really take off the way that we expect them to. And heck, at this point, try to catch the Braves, because they're still only 4 back, I think, or something.
The Braves
in the division.
lost a series to one of the worst teams in baseball's
history. The worst team in history. Yeah. Let's not even kid about this. This is the worst team we've seen in baseball history. Probably
Matt Olson and Sean Murphy on your side, and you lose the first 2 games. What?
Yeah, it's not good. Not good. But yeah, no, they've got a shot they still have plenty of, year left to catch the Braves and to do some damage.
Only 3.5 back right now.
Time to get going.
Could be a lot worse.
It's time to get going.
Yeah.
It's time to get going. In my opinion, it's time to get going. And that's what, when you start to talk about June 1st, like this is when, we've had enough of the year now. We're more than a third of the way through the season. Like we've had enough of the season now to know who you should be, who you can be. And we've only seen flashes of it, so they need to start playing a lot better. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves at some point, like this Braves team got hot for a little bit. At some point, they're going to get hot again. This is a very good Braves team. Don't get me wrong. This Phillies team is better than we've seen this year. We know that.
I think they're going to have a really good second half.
They've played terrible so far. Yeah. So it's what are they going to do to figure it out? The Mets have got to start making their mark right now. I think this is their time to go on a nice run. So hopefully they're able to do that.
Yeah, hopefully they have a strong summer. Again, this time last year, the Mets were rolling as you got into June, July, leading up to the trade deadline, right? That was all great times to be a baseball fan for the Mets. But I also did want to make note from from the pitching side of things, you talk about health. Another guy that is going to be facing live batters for the first time since he first got injured starting Monday
Yep.
is Jose Quintana. And that is
Yep.
huge news because the rehab start is going to follow not long after. And as of now, we're pretty much a month away or so from seeing Jose Quintana. Should he stay on par? Should he not have setbacks? And honestly, that's much sooner than I initially expected because how those injuries were made out to be when they found the lesion as well. Of course, it was announced the day that I met him and ran into him in Florida, so I was getting ragged that day all day long. But it's crazy how Quintana looks like he's ahead of schedule. Everything has went right thus far. And that's another piece. That is, I don't want to pull up Roy Van Wagenen, but I'm going to and say, that is like a trade deadline piece for you. We talk about every year when you get those pieces back internally to see what productivity you can have from them. And especially if you get Quintana back with 3 weeks prior to the trade deadline, that's also huge. So at least you have a good taste of what you're knowing, what your pitching depth looks like then, and then you can go and make the proper decisions as you follow, because they definitely need to add to this bullpen. They need more depth in. There's no doubt in my mind. Rotation, you could even make that fair argument. I love Tyler McGill as much as the next guy, but if McGill doesn't continue to really get himself acclimated and straight, I still want more quality depth there because you're not getting David Pearson. You're not getting that right now. Joey Lucchesi has done great since being sent back down again, but how much more is he going to be more than just a multi-innings eater? He's again guys that are productive in small sample sizes, but if you want more quality depth, then Mets need to make sure they go out and seek that. But I did want to ask you before we get to wrapping things up, talking about the Blue Jays, as a player, especially during your playing days, how much, if at all, were you the type to standing watch, especially being on that Mets team there in 2015? Like, when did it start to really hit, if at all, throughout the season for you? And what were the clubhouses like too? Did they vary on the team, especially obviously with how you're performing, of course, but on any competitive team that you've been on, what has that experience been like? And when are a lot of players really starting to lock in and, maybe they don't want to acknowledge things, but you definitely know that it's in the back of their mind where they stand?
Yeah, I think when it comes to standings, and I'll call it scoreboard watching, because that's when you know you're really paying attention to the standings. It doesn't really happen till August, right? Like everything before that is a process. It's your routine. It's about being consistent. It's about just staying on course, whatever that course is for you, and not really looking left or right. When you play certain teams, when it's an important series, or when you want to, when you're trying to find a little extra, whatever you want to call it. But that said, for the most part, that doesn't happen until like that August, mid to late August, when you're starting to run through, you're getting through that, those dog days of summer, if you will. I hate that term because to me, I loved like those days. That was when I still felt physically strong and others were breaking down. So like, I was like, yeah, this is the best day of the year. The best days of the year, because I'm in better shape than you, so I can beat the crap out of you right now.
Not to cut you off, but do you think not only you being in shape, but also you being, again, a part-time player, do you think that factored into you feeling as fresh as you did?
No. Okay. No, because I'm even talking about my minor league days when I played all year. Like when I would play the full year, enough. I'd play 120 games or whatever. I just always felt good towards the end of the year, and other guys would start to break down. All that said, that's just when you start to kind of watch the scoreboard. Who you're chasing or who you're trying to fend off, whatever you're going to call it. And so that's when that kind of creeps in a little bit. You don't want it to, trust me. Like you'd rather go the whole year and stay the course. If you're 10 games up come late August, you're just thinking about staying the course and not worried about anything else. You know what I mean? But all that said, yeah, that's when that starts. Right now, this Mets team hopefully has no, they'll know they're a couple games back or whatever, but they're not scoreboard watching. They're not worried about whether they lost and the Braves won that night. Like it's just about staying the course and trying to win more than you lose.
Yeah, no, and that's really what I want to ask you, because I feel like for some players it may vary on really like either how hard on themselves they are, especially if say they're in a slump and you're a team that isn't playoff position, but you're really scratching and clawing away to move up in the said standing. So it was awesome to hear your perspective on that. And now I want to hear your perspective on this Blue Jays series. The Mets, this is again the beauty for those that enjoy the different scheduling now. You're playing every team at least once, and the Mets are facing off against the Blue Jays at home. And it starts with game one being against, again, former friend, now foe, and Chris Bassett, who I have to give credit where credit's due. Seabass, again, another guy that I have no ill will with. I thoroughly enjoyed his time in Queens. At times, he was an absolute bulldog. Of course, he broke down the stretch, unfortunately, against the Braves and then the Padres. But, so did Scherzer. It was like the top of the rotation. They were all breaking down at that time. So he wasn't the only one. But, Bassett now with his new team there in Toronto, and he's going to be matching up against that being in, let me double check here, in Verlander. JV, of course, looking for a bounce back start after getting shelled there against Colorado. How are you feeling about this game one matchup, especially against Seabass has a 3.8 ERA on the season.
Is it 3.8? Yeah.
Got roughed up his first start. Definitely looked like a guy that you expected to struggle at first with the pitch clock, but now he's found his rhythm, right? So I'm really curious to know what.
Well, his first start he gave up 9. His last start he gave up 7, but in between there he gave up 12 earned in 9 outings, 9 games. So
that last start, was that against the Rays?
Twins.
Okay. Because I know he didn't have a great start against the Rays either before that.
That was I think he gave up 4 in that one.
Okay.
I want to say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
But yeah, no, I mean, look, Bassett he's a very good pitcher. Like, obviously the Mets are worse off for not having him this year. That doesn't mean they're not going to be better. I'm just saying that this is a very good pitcher. Like, this guy's a good big league pitcher. Yes, he has his blow up games, and that's just part of the way he pitches, right? He's not a 98 blow you away type of guy. So if there's a game where he's off, his stuff isn't working, he doesn't feel good. Yeah, he has the ability to get hit. But all that said, like, he's a very good pitcher. That said, Mets have Verlander on the mound. I expect that Verlander will pitch well. Obviously, his last outing was not great. But I expect that he'll pitch well. So I think this is the marquee matchup of the series. This is the one that we'll kind of be watching. I think game 2 is Barrios versus McGill right now.
That's a really interesting one too, because
Barrios has been much better of late.
He's
much
looked like
better.
The Barrios that we expected, right? So
yes, for the last 2 years now in Toronto.
I was a huge fan
and he hasn't brought it
with Minnesota too, and
he was super consistent there.
Yeah,
super consistent every year, almost identical numbers there when he was in Minnesota. So it's good to see him getting that back on track. That's going to be a tough matchup because McGill, look, he just hasn't been pitching very consistently, and against this Blue Jays lineup, if you miss spots, they can make you pay. They're not hitting the home run ball. Like, they're middle of the pack, just like the Mets are in home runs. They have 64 on the year. The Mets have 65, but they rake, man. Like, Bichette rakes, hits the ball over the ballpark. They don't walk a ton, but they don't strike out a ton either. And they high average team, obviously a high OPS team. They score runs. They're a good team. So it's going to be an interesting matchup there. And then the last game is, at least right now, I believe it's Kikuchi against Senga. I believe this would be Senga on normal rest, though, right? So I'm not sure.
Rest is what it's going to be.
Like normal. That's what I mean by normal person rest. He's had 5 or more days every start. So I guess it's going to be an interesting matchup if he keeps that spot. One, it just being Kikuchi against Senga. I'm sure there's a little bit of fun cultural battle going on there. That'll be neat to see.
The fact that you're in Flushing, it's going to be packed Oriental descent. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool. Yeah. I am excited for that matchup as well. But Senga at home, like, I expect him to pitch well. Kikuchi is up and down. Like, he's had some really good outings this year, but again, he's had some really bad blow-up outings, like he does sometimes. And I thought early in the year he pitched great. He's been much more inconsistent of late. So I think the Mets probably have an advantage in that game. So I would say if I were to call it right now, like, the Mets take 2 out of 3, they take game 1 and game 3, and game 2 is, it might go the Blue Jays' way. That's kind of where I'm leaning. But obviously I would love to see this team, and I think they have the ability more than that, to go through and play really well, because the Blue Jays haven't been playing well this year. They're very much like the Mets.
They're
like
both
the
30
Phillies,
and 27.
Like some of these teams that have kind of underperformed so far. Like this Blue Jays team, their roster as it stands, they should be much better. Vladdy has been swinging the bat well, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't been like the Vladdy of 2 years ago when he was an MVP candidate, right? Like,
Chapman got off to
a scorching start, but he's slowed down lately. He still has 21 doubles, which is incredible. Yeah. Dude's still raking, but he's slowed down a lot. He's not hitting 400 anymore. He's hitting 289, I think. So yeah, there's some room. I think this Blue Jays bullpen, they have some nice pieces, but they're vulnerable as well. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. To me, it comes down to the starters, because I would say that these two teams are very similar in their bullpen, Offensively, they're actually very similar. The Blue Jays they put the ball in play. They have a higher average. They have way more doubles, so their slugging percentage is up, things like that. But they're not scoring a ton of runs. They put up 21 on the Rays, I think it was, but they're not scoring a ton of runs on average, I should say. So I think the Mets can stick with them there. It's just going to be, can the Mets continue to pitch well, and can they get the timely hits that they got in that Philly series? Because that's really all it was. They didn't hit great in that Philly series.
No, not at all.
They got the timely hits. And so that's what matters. If they can do that, obviously, like the playoffs, if you can do that, you win. And that's what it'll come down to. And like I said, I think they can take 2 out of 3.
Yeah, and the recipe to success is as simple as getting at least 6 innings from your starter. The Mets are undefeated this year when they're getting at least 6 innings. So if they can
16-0, right?
Yeah, I think 16 or 17. Yeah, they're killing it, right? And that's awesome. Again,
I think the record to start the year is 17-0.
Oh shit. Okay, so hopefully, fingers crossed, JV, you should at minimum get 6 from him, right? If not 7, if not more. We'll see how he matches up. I will say this though, he has a great familiarity against this Blue Jays team. He knows him very well during his time in the AL. Even pitched a no against them, albeit it was a couple of years ago. But still, I like that matchup. I really do. And it's funny, in Game 3, you have Kikuchi, one of the many Mets starting pitchers that they, at least reportedly, really, really wanted when he was a free agent, and they ended up not getting him. And instead, that was the offseason in which, that's right, that's when they wanted to get Mats. They didn't get Mats, and I'll say that was a good decision that happened, that Mats decided not return to Queens. And then they went all in on Kikuchi as a depth starter because they really liked, again, the advanced numbers, because Kikuchi has the stuff. Again, it's just about really figuring him out and his control, right? So they didn't land him, and then they opted instead for, again, trading for Chris Bassett, getting Max Scherzer, and that ultimately led them to playing success this past season. So that's going to be a key matchup. And Kodai Senga, something to watch is, one, the downside to him pitching Sunday is, one, you got to make sure you see how he does on normal rest for a change. 2, he's not going to pitch against the Atlanta Braves. That is going to stain a little bit as well. So you're lacking pitching depth in that series. And the other hand, though, is that the Mets may have done this, not necessarily just for the matchup against Kikuchi, but also because they're home. And I think the Mets are wary enough to know that he's on an absolute heater at home right now. He's like, they're probably like, if it ain't broke, why fix it? So
let him go at home.
Let him go at home. I really think that's playing a big factor into this too. And you got JV, they're going to be repping the black jerseys tomorrow night. I think we're going to have a good start from JV tomorrow, knock on wood. I think it's going to be a good matchup, and I'm looking forward to it. It's always good matchups against Blue Jays. I saw them in 2021, and talking about the fan difference, when I was there, it was Hyun-Jin Ryu was on the mound. So, and I think it was Korean night as well. So it was all themed perfectly. I don't know if it was Korean night was planned ahead of time, but it was a perfect storm. And I was sitting in the visitors section actually too. And you had all people of different Oriental descent there, all enjoying wearing their Hyun-Jin Ryu jerseys. You even I saw some people that were doing like in-game drawings of Hyun-Jin Ryu, which was so sick while they were just sitting in the stands. So it's a different vibe. It's very cool, though, for anyone that will be attending that Sunday day game, and hopefully the Mets already have the series dubbed by then. But yeah, I'm just very excited. The Mets, again, doing well at home. Hopefully they can continue their winning ways as they have now won 8 straight. But before we get to wrapping things up, just want to answer donations, whatever comments you got for us. Again, appreciate everyone watching live and on replay. Yoshima, thank you for the donation earlier. He says, groove out the brooms. Absolutely. Again, shout out again to you, Yoshima, for winning the Brett Bay jersey. Make sure to DM me or send me an email, and I'll get that sent your way. And again, new jersey giveaway starts next week, guys, and we'll pick a winner at the end of June. So you got plenty of time to enter, and your odds of winning are far greater than just being a subscriber on the channel, because it's just entering Wardy's Sorare MLB League, the best MLB fantasy game out there that is, again, free to play. Elliot, thank you for the donation. He said, hi, Tyler and Record. Great sweep of the Philly. Yes, it was. Happy to have you in here, Elliot. You're an absolute beauty. Let me go down the list more. 1200 says, no more 40-year-olds or we riot. At least knock a trash can over. Zapucky Cy on lock. Zapucky with the comments has continued since June when he faced the Giants, his now team from last year. I appreciate that donation. Thank you. He says, Vogues needs to sit. I agree that Vogelback needs to sit. I mean, his runs may have been productive, but he's just not swinging a good bat at all. He really isn't. And as someone that has loved Vogelback, we even had a merch line saying bringing Vogelback,
I'm a big Vogelback fan. I really am.
We love him.
I just love him as a person.
Yeah,
I love him as a person, and then I do like him as a player. It hasn't been. He hasn't been swinging the bat. He hasn't been swinging the bat.
He literally
lately,
hasn't been
but he
swinging the
hasn't been
bat.
swinging the bat.
You might as well
as
super
well as
glue
he
his
should
bat
be.
to his shoulder because
Yeah.
it wouldn't make a difference most of the time. You're just taking so many pitches. It's unbelievable.
Look, and that's one of those things. I mentioned this. I sent out a tweet the other day about Juan Soto about this. I don't like to tell guys to swing more or to do anything outside of their approach because the approach is such a big part of your game. Like it's what makes you who you are.
Yeah.
And part of his approach is taking pitches. I faced this guy in the minor leagues a bunch of times, and he takes pitches. But you know what? He usually, when he's right, is ready for your mistake and makes you pay for it.
Exactly.
That's the problem right now. Is he's not either ready for the mistake or he's not seeing it well,
He's not seeing
or something's going on where it's just not that, and that's the problem. I'd rather him take than just flail if he's not seeing it well, and that's fine. But at the same time, it's you want to see more out of your DH, if you will, of course, especially on a team that has struggled for power at times. They've been much more prolific of late. I believe they're top 5 in the last 2 weeks or a month or something, basically since Alvarez got hot. And a lot of that has to do with Pete. He's got almost a third of their home runs. He's got 20 out of 65 home runs for the team. But that said, like this team's starting to hit on. You'd like to see Vogelback hit a few more home runs, hit the ball in general a little bit more.
I've been saying this from the beginning. I feel like it's imperative for the DH position to have power, and Vogelback for a guy that when you see him, you'd expect power, but he just isn't that. He's just at his best. He's a great OBP guy. He'll get you 15
I kind of
20
expect speed when I see him,
Yeah.
Just
I mean,
pure speed.
We can't forget that commercial. I know. Seriously.
It was a great commercial.
They advertised for him being a stolen base god, and yet we haven't gotten it either.
Commercial.
Yeah, no, the MLB did great with their promos this year with the new rule changes. I have to give them credit for that. But Dave with the $5 holly says, put a jelly donut on each base and Vogie will get there. Oh, come on. Let's be a little.
Come on.
I love you, Dave, but come on. He said that the other night, too, which I found funny. Vogie came into the season like Alonso, dropping 15 or 20 pounds. But again, he hasn't proven to me that that's made a difference. However, his plate approach hasn't been any better. I mean, the base pass looked the same, but I digress.
You don't want that. Whoever, I don't know who Mets Nation is. You don't want that. You don't want me to DH.
You know who I think I want to DH? It's someone that just came out of retirement. Our good friend Murph. Daniel Murphy just won Player of the Month in his league. They're playing with the Long Island Ducks. Yes,
he won Player of the Month.
Dude, he's on like a 12-game hitting streak. At least
he's
crazy
natural hitter. Like there aren't many guys that I've seen with Murphy's ability to put the ball put the bat to the ball in my time in the big leagues. And not only that, but the way he thinks about hitting, and this is what I love about Murph, is so different that it makes him unique in his approach, so that when you're facing him, it's different than facing anybody else, because I've played with him and I've played against him. And so it's kind of fun, both playing with him and playing against him. He's a unique character. He's a unique player. It doesn't surprise me that he's hitting the ball well. I would love to see him get an opportunity in the big leagues. Would love it.
So listen to this. So this was announced by the Long Island Ducks over the past day. It says, congrats to our player of the month for April, May. Daniel Murphy, the 12-year MLB vet, leads all Ducks and ranks second in the Atlantic League with 32 hits. He also leads the flock and ranks 6th in the ALPB in batting average at 347 while playing in all 30 games. Dude, he's on a heater.
He's hitting 347. Hasn't played for 2 years, and he comes back and he's hitting 347.
You'll love to see it. I'm so glad too, because I told you this, and I told Murph this too. Like in my early Mets fandom, it was great for like the first year that, again, I was watching them daily, was of course when you were on the team, and it was when Murph had, again, that historic playoff run. But that was so short-lived because I want to see more of that. I watched Murph, of course, in the years prior, but more casually when I would attend games, and I would watch during the week with my dad. But you see Murph break out, and then he goes to the one team you would hope he wouldn't go to, right? And that just, oh my God, when I tell you that, like, I would almost not want to even go to any games against the Nationals, because he had the best numbers imaginable against his former club. It was not even funny. Like he just came to
playing
play
against your former club
it's
just a different feeling, especially like if you feel slighted in any way, or there's any kind of anything. I can promise you, every time I played against the Cubs, the A's, I mean, I barely played against the A's. But anytime I played against the Cubs, when I got to come back and play against the Mets, like there was a little extra there. There was a little extra there, and it's fun. It's a different feeling.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, they of course let Murph go because they had all their eyes locked in on Ben Zobrist, and then Zobrist last minute, instead of going with the Mets, he signed with the Cubs. So that was another thing. So then I'm forgetting who they opted for. I don't know. Was that Asdrubal Cabrera time?
Neil Walker?
Or Walker? Yeah, I think it,
Neil
yeah.
Walker was 2016.
Okay, Neil, and I like Neil.
And he got off to that torrid start where he had like
Against
10
the
homers in
Phillies,
a
too.
month or something crazy. Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, I love Neil. He had a good time with the Mets. Yeah, he was definitely part of like my peak fandom when I was younger. But with that being said, guys, I think that's going to do it because we're running around an hour. I said we're going to end at 40, and of course we're at an hour. That's usually how it works when we're having fun. But I appreciate.
We're talkers.
Yep.
We're talkers.
I appreciate everyone watching live on our replay for our latest episode of Queen's Corner. Make sure to check out the 7 Line on all their socials. If you haven't already, make sure to drop a like, a follow there. Appreciate everyone watching on Facebook, Twitter, and of course here on the WardyNYM YouTube channel. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe on. For people on replay, let us know your raw reactions and comments down below. And of course, make sure to check out Anthony Recker, not only on his socials, but on MLB Network. Reck, are you going to be on MLB Network anytime soon?
I got a lot coming up. I got a lot coming up this month. Right now I'm scheduled for 11 shows, okay. MLB Central, MLB Tonight. Sweet. So check me out morning or night. I'll be on sporadically. A lot of late nights. So you got the kids playing baseball and stuff, so I got to do the late night shift right now. But
there you go.
Be on there.
All right. Well, guys, make sure to chime in whenever you can. And again, appreciate everyone watching. We'll talk to you all